Okay, so easy peasy how to make a landscape and then port it. How to port stuff to godot. So add a mesh. In this case it would be a plane because we are making a landscape. I'm going to multiply it by 400 because that is the corners of my view. It should be. It might be 4000 S10. That's the corners of my view. And of course to stretch that, I would just do, let's say 10 or 100, it doesn't matter. That way I can always see, oh wow, never mind. That's not the distance, that's dimensions. Well, fuck me. Sorry. There's a view distance. There used to be a view distance in this one. I have to remember what that was. So instead I'm just going to make it go down by 10 by making it 0.1. That way I can see everything I'm working with. So 400, edit, right click, subdivide. I'm going to subdivide it by 10. That's a lot. No, I thought it was a lot. 50. And then subdivide again, subdivide again, subdivide again. There it is. That's good enough for what we're going to do. Sculpt. You might notice that you're building twice. That's not how you want to build your landscape. If you do build a landscape, what you want to do is find the sculpting tab, look for symmetry, and take off mirror. And then you can build like that. And if you want a reference to height, that light right there is 2 or 3 times the size of a person, so you're not really building too big. It just looks like that. So you would just kind of make your noise, which normally I would use texture, but again, this is short. I'm going to leave it short because it actually does take a while to make a landscape. No matter what you're using, it takes a long time. You can do draw sharp. That's great for making rivers, of course. And then you might be wondering, yeah, but what about smoothing? Blender already has that. Not in edit mode, but actually in sculpting now. And then of course you have inflate, which is great, because you can change your radius in all kinds of ways. And the great thing about inflate actually is the fall off that you're going to get. So you can inflate the landscape and the edges would fall off into basically the water. And then that seems really big, but that's okay. We got a bottom to work with, and then you're just going to find blob, I guess, is fun to work with too. This looks like trash right now, but it'll look a lot better in a minute. Smooth tool. That's what that tool's for. Not the smooth vectors with edit. Okay, and then the flatten tool, which is again, great. Probably want to increase the strength. And then, you know, you can grab all those edges that you want down. And normally I would vertex paint it, but because this is a short tutorial, I'm just going to add a material to it. And of course we have all kinds of tools, like scrape and all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't actually look as good as I thought it would. Now I'm going to add a little bit more noise. Oh, not small enough. Normally I would be spending way more time on this, but I can't. So I'm just going to add the noise for the purposes of having something to work with. I would use a texture to add noise, by the way. But it's okay. It's okay for our purposes. Might be thinking, well, that looks really tall. It does, but there's ways around that. And grab's really nice. I like the grab tool because, well, it might have been a different tool. Yeah, elastic deform was the tool. It allows me to shift whole parts of the landscape. Which will allow for lakes and rivers and all kinds of cool stuff. And also give that mountain hill deform feel to it. And then I'm going to go back and do another smooth with less strength. Going to need a bigger radius. Maybe a little bit more strength. And then of course trying to clean up the edges. It's always going to be a big part of the landscape because you don't want the player to see off the edges. Edit mode. Smoothing through edit mode is normally what I go for. I would do a 0.2, 10. It's not the same as doing 2 in every case, so that's why I do that. And then while I'm in edit mode, I might as well do as SZ 0.5, the Z.5. I just play with it SZ.7, SZ.9 to kind of get it to look better. And of course, after that you can start adding your materials. I don't have a materials thing, so I'm going to have to make a new window. In this window, that's going to be for other purposes. Let me just put this over here. This is going to be for the materials. But first I'm going to unwrap it, and the way I unwrap it, I usually do cube projection. I don't know why. Cube projection is just great for me. It's not, you don't have to do cube projection. Shader editor. Add a material. Back to my shader editor. And normally I would vertex paint, but this time I'm going to do an image texture. And of course I could open that, documents, and I have it in my Blender FBX files, projects, textures, landscape, dirt. There's other things I have, but I like dirt. And when I add dirt, this is what I get. Specular down. And it doesn't look too bad, but of course it could be a lot better. And it is not made for this purpose. I mean, this is a pretty big landscape, so I'm going to have to affect the UVs. So UV editor, edit mode, all S10. That should do. Object mode. And that looks a little better. It's still going to have lines in it. I could get the lines out with a couple of noise textures and stuff like that. But it could look better. But, you know, I just didn't want something to be complete crap before I ported it. So, now I'm going to get over to the porting side of this. Export. And there's two ways to do this. You can export object, or you can export DAE. And believe it or not, exporting DAE comes with an object file, so it really doesn't matter. So opt for exporting DAE file every time. For this, I'm also going to make a folder. Right click, new folder, Blender _ DAE file. Now, in the Blender DAE file, you're going to want to have another folder for the type of asset it is. So, landscape, and in that, I would actually also name the landscape. For this, I'm calling it V1. You can name it whatever. I just call it V1, version 1, export. Once that's done, the godot side is actually really simple. Don't show. Godot side is actually super simple. So let me just start off with making a new project. I'm just going to keep it a game project and look for my godot folder. You don't have to use a godot folder, but I do. And create folder and just NWP, new project, or tutorial. Okay. Select current folder, create and edit. Godot's going to open up. It's a game engine. Godot is not a file editor. So you got your files right here. To import anything is really easy. So I go to Documents, look for my Blender DAE files, version 1, and I could copy that. Copy that. Go back. Look for godot. What did I call it? I call it NWP toot. And then in here I can actually paste it, but instead I'm going to make another folder. And I'm going to call that folder the landscape. My caps are on. I know that's annoying, so I'm turning my caps off. Sorry about that. And Control V. Or paste. That's done. I close this. Now look at what's going on. It's importing this stuff. It's importing stuff. There it is. Landscape folders right there. Importing assets. The re doesn't mean anything. It just means it's either importing or it's re-importing. And that's okay. This is going to take a minute, so I'm going to pause and smoke. Oh, never mind. That was quicker than I thought. There is the DAE file. I'm actually going to do inherited to open it. And when we open it, we get our scene. Yeah, it's a scene node for us. It already is a scene. We don't have to go and create a new node. But we also have a material. And our material is to our right over here. And this is where we can change it. Obviously, the specular and all that other shit I'm going to have to change. But the texture still followed, which is great. So I can find metallic. I can turn specular down, which helps a hell of a lot. I can find albedo. I could find vertex colors. There's a whole shit ton of stuff you can do with this. Vertex colors would mean that I could use vertex painting on the landscape, and the vertex painting would follow. Roughness I'm going to increase. And of course, there's a lot of editing you can do, and you can see that the texture still followed like it's supposed to. And you get a natural sky, which I always thought was cool. You get to have a natural sky. Normal maps you can enable. See what happens when I do that. And you don't have to add normal maps, but yet I can, well, you might have to have normal maps, but you can scale normal maps and it would scale in the texture. I've seen that happen. Not in UVs X, Y like normally, but actually scale in the Z axis, which gives you a hell of a lot more room to work with. Clear coat, all the things that you could imagine to come with a material it has. Refraction, detail. It's got UV1, but it also has UVs 2. UVs 2 is great as well because you can stack your textures without having to do overlays. And then you have distance fade, which is exactly what Unreal's fade to distance does, except with textures. So distance fade does it without textures, which is pretty great because distance fade does it again without textures, and there's other ways it can do it. And by doing it without textures, you're saving on your texture bitmaps. And then of course you have object distance fade, which is really great. This is better than I had hoped for, to be honest. Editing the materials it's not so bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And all your nodes are on the right here. And it inherits all the textures, unlike in Unreal, where it did not. It just didn't. Unshaded, you have shadows. And that was really cool. That brought out the light. Vertex lighting. There's all kinds of little nodes that are here that affect lots of things. And I still have to learn more about it. But still, that's how you bring in your meshes. These files, you notice how that has an X by it. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work. So of course what I would do is I would save scene. I would save that. Now it's Now it's this. And that is a scene. That is what this is. And normally you would try and make it the main. So if I press play, it's going to say select the main. So I would select the main. I would find the TSCN that I made. I would open it. And now it's playing. Right now. Of course, I fucked up because my camera is right here. So you would have to drag the camera up. I would even opt to rotate it a little bit. And then press play. See if we can see our dirt. And bam, there it is. I don't have any movement input because I haven't coded any. But there you go. For looking at the scene. And if I get close enough to my camera, I should be able to see what direction it's pointing at, and I can if I get close enough. That's the same way it would work in Blender. You can see how the camera has an up arrow. So rotating it, now I press play again, and I can get the camera angles correct. And if you want me to, I can build movement so you can play the game with that little camera. Whatever TSN you send, I can build the code for movement. All you have to do is copy paste it, because in this node, this camera, I click on camera and I can add a script to the camera. So I can add script to the camera, and that means when you press play, you can move the camera up, forward, back, left, right, up and down, and rotate if you want to play with the camera in the scene. That's so easy that all you'd have to do is press the script button, and whatever I sent you, you just copy and paste. Because GD script doesn't do errors on copy and paste.